So, if you're like me, you may have noticed that the modern left enjoys lying about everything. They'll lie about anything if there's some advantage in it for them. And there's nothing that they enjoy lying about more than being oppressed or victimized in some way. Because as we know now, victimization is the coin of the realm in far left land. And if you haven't been victimized by noon, you're not lying enough. And it looks like we have a case here of a leftist doing what a leftist does best. But first, I'll set the scene. Here's the headline: Leave the Kids Alone, the largest protest against gender ideology in Canadian history. The largest protest against gender ideology in Canadian history took place in Ottawa on Friday, and thousands of people attended on both sides of the debate. Organized by Chris Elston, better known as Billboard Chris, and student activist Josh Alexander, hundreds of parents and students gathered peacefully to oppose radical gender ideology and indoctrination in Canada's schools. Now, Billboard Chris, you may have heard of. He's attempting to start conversations and raise awareness about the dangers of things like puberty blockers, obviously surgeries for minors. Josh Alexander is the Canadian teenager who was kicked out of school for opposing radical gender theory and praxis in his school.
Leave our kids alone! Leave our kids alone! Fascists go home! Fascists go home! Fascists! Price is big! Price is big! Leave the kids alone! Leave the kids alone! Leave the kids.
That was from True North News. You could see on one side the anti-gender theory crowd, which is a diverse crowd, including a lot of Muslims there, which has got to be very distressing for the far leftists on the other side that are pro-gender theory in schools. So, of course, this is a perfect time for a leftist to make something up and try and earn some of those oppression points. Now, Joel Harden is a member of provincial parliament for the NDP, and the NDP, if you're not from Canada, is Canada's furthest left party. Not that the Liberals aren't far left now, they certainly appear to be to me, but these guys are even more left. And he responded to this tweet talking about the protest. This is absolute madness. The far-right mob is not even at school anymore, and they're just standing in the middle of a residential street in Westboro chanting nonsense in the direction of random homeowners to leave our kids alone. Geez, I guess these busy parents must have just woken up one morning and decided to make a fuss out of nothing. But in any case, this Joel Harden responded, and punching people in the face, but I'll take a punch for queer and trans youth any day. I mean, what he actually means there, what that actually means is that he'll take a punch for sterilizing and mutilating children any day. And it's worth mentioning that there were lots of police there, and they certainly would have been keeping an eye on a member of parliament, a member of provincial parliament, and of course he was never in any danger at all. So let's get a look at this picture, though. And it's very clear what he's insinuating here. He's saying that he's been punched, and he shows a picture of his face, and you can see this little mark right there. And it's very clear from this message that he's saying that he got punched in the face. And that's pretty serious. That's exactly the sort of thing that the CBC is combing for 24/7. Because the CBC loves any opportunity to try and demonize normal people. And a left-wing politician being punched by some far-rightist, I mean, that's a huge story. The media would be all over this. It must be on, the CBC must be making a big fuss out of this. Let's take a look. No, nothing. Let's see. Well, here's local updates. Here's for Ottawa. And that's where it happened. So you'd think, no mention of an provincial MPP being punched. That's strange. I wonder why they're avoiding this story. Well, here's Jagmeet Singh. He's the leader of the federal NDP. He says, I'm proud of you, Joel Harden. Ontario NDP, queer and trans people and kids are being targeted by angry and hateful extremists. Not true at all. Governments must step up to protect the queer and trans community. Well, I think the people protesting are trying to protect kids from people like you. But you know what's interesting in this is that he doesn't mention anything specifically about the punch here. That's also interesting. Well, there's actually some video from this, and there he is. There's Joel Harden right there. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. What's that? Looks like his megaphone there, and there's something sticking out of it, and it's hitting exactly the place on his face where there's the little scratch. Well, that sure doesn't look like getting punched in the face. That looks like he just scratched himself. Let's take a look at this again. Yeah, that looks exactly like what might have caused that scratch on his face. Huh. So apparently he mistook his own megaphone for being punched in the face. So after that video came out, he made another statement. He said, "Update, last Friday, I broke up several altercations or near altercations that got started by anti-trans protesters." They're not anti-trans protesters. They are parents concerned about their children being exposed to radical gender theory in the schools. But again, I mentioned about how they like to lie constantly, right? Anyway, in one of these occasions, a woman was grabbing another woman by the hair. How does he know they were women? Did he just assume their genders? Bad far leftist. Bad, bad. I put my body between them and separated them. So I'm already feeling like he's continuing to make things up, but let's keep going. After separating them, I looked over my shoulder and was punched. I was holding a megaphone against my face. The blow glanced off the megaphone and my face was cut. The woman left and the altercation ended. Well, you can't actually see any of that happen in the video, so... But that isn't being punched in the face, is it? But anyway, he says, "I do not want this woman charged." I bet he doesn't. I bet he doesn't. I bet he doesn't want anybody talking to anybody who saw what happened, for obvious reasons. I would rather talk to her about why she needed to be violent and why she needed to protest outside public schools. If she is reading this statement, that offer still holds. Please get in touch with me. You know, I can't help but think, though, it might be kind of hard for an imaginary person to get in touch with you. Oh, and then here's a picture of them. Looks like a cross of him and Jussie Smollett with the little thing on his face. Well, Twitter Notes had something to say about this. It says, "Upon careful examination, it can be ascertained that Joel Harden unintentionally collided with his own megaphone, resulting in the visible mark captured in the accompanying image." Now, of course, the corporate media in Canada, especially the CBC, will completely ignore this story. And it's actually amazing that they didn't jump on this immediately. It's amazing that they showed any restraint whatsoever, that they waited to see if this was actually true or not. But certainly this is a story now. A Canadian politician pulling a Jussie Smollett-style hoax? That should be a big deal, and if it was a conservative, you can bet this would be front page news right now. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.